Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special live show midweek. It's not the Blue or Broad show. It is the Pommy. I think this is the break glass in case of emergency show, because we have a mid-season draft coming up tomorrow, and we have a couple of spots to fill, and we're in a bit of trouble. We need some tools. Take me through what's going on high level.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because the club has been quite bullish about these picks, been quite bullish, and they said that they probably wouldn't use them. They've got targets in place. I was fortunate enough to be the sponsors event, and they were very adamant about that at the time. This was pre-injury, that they'd identified a handful of targets, but they have 2 picks, but they're not, that they were confident the tolls were okay in time. But obviously, Wheatering going down probably changes that dynamic massively, and I think the club will be actively picking up at all costs. Luckily, though, looking at the draft order, and Uncle Pom's read between the lines. I've listened to I've done about 50 hours of research into this. This is the biggest mid-year draft we've ever had because don't really put much effort in. It's hard to predict, but there's been a few little gambits from clubs that are probably looking at the same as us, who have maybe revealed their draft hand that they're not going the way that legends like Cal Toomey think. And I think there'll be a little bit of surprises in this. Anyone who's worried about picks, look at Sam Durdin when we took DeLuca. He was odds on pick 1 or 2, undrafted. So it's not, the NAB draft is easy. This is hard because some people play little games. But Carlton, I'll guarantee you, will have some tall guy, and there is 2 guys I've earmarked. One is a ripper. I'm telling you, ripper.
So I am just the common man here who knows absolutely nothing about anyone that we're going to talk about tonight, and that's just the way I like it because I like to learn. Basically, we're going to go through 6 names tonight. Should take us the better part of about half an hour. If anybody has any questions in the audience, please let us know what they are. But essentially, Pom, we'll just get started because obviously we've got to get things wrapped up because there's a big jumper punch episode tonight and the boys have gone ham. But before we start, just for those in the audience, what do you think we need? I mean, the consensus for me is a defender and maybe someone that can pinch hit in the ruck, although I do think the ruck situation doesn't need to be filled as desperately as what we might think it does on the surface, but definitely a defender and a big body that we can put behind the ball. Let's get started. We'll start with the first name. Tell us a little bit about Kallan Dawson.
So this is going to be as rare as hen's teeth. So a lot of people have him going pick 2 to North Melbourne. A lot of people think he may slide because of his kicking. It's one of them. I don't think he'll be there, but I have to do my due diligence and give you the best option. This guy here, Kallan Dawson, 23 years old, 194, 78, key defender, also plays the 3rd. Think of Caleb Marchbank. Can play the tall position. He's got the body and the strength to do it, but he's also he's an elite interceptor. And you'd say with Wheatering out, that is something that Carlton will look at. He's in that wonderful thing as well. 6.6 marks, 4 of them intercepts this year.
Wow.
Williamstown boy, right dimensions, 195, 96 kgs, and 78 kgs as well. So he's ready to play. He's a little bit undersized, but he does play a lot bigger than that. He would probably be Carlton's dream if Carlton had luck, but I don't think he'll be there. It'll be a huge shock for him to fall to where we are in the 13 and 22. It's probably not going to happen, but this would be the guy that you'd probably look at and you'd grab him and you'd say, look, tell you what, we'll take a risk on a key in the next pick, a genuine key. This kid's talented.
Right. Oh, okay. So if he is available with our first pick, which we think it's going to be unlikely, but if he was, you have to be opportunistic and take it.
Yeah, this is Devon Robertson type. You know, he may slide, but if he suddenly slides to you, bang, bang, bang.
Okay, interesting. Anything else important about him that we need to know?
He drifts in and out of the game, but I think this one for Carlton would be someone that you know with your second pick, if he slipped there, you are guaranteed to have a decent key who's mature age. So this is a guy that you maybe think, you know what, there's a bit about him. We can groom him really nicely into the system. Two or three nice VFL games, and then maybe if we do have another third injury, because that's where we are now. We're doing damage limitation. We've got no key defenders. So we're also looking at the next cab off the rank. What happens if that third position goes down? And this is the kind of guy that you look at. But this guy is very talented and has a high ceiling. And I think whoever picks him up, this will be the type of guy that's like a Newcomb, that you'll look back and you go, Jesus, he should have been pick one.
Interesting. All right. I like the sound of him. Let's move on. Max Ramsden. What can you tell us about him?
Wouldn't be a show of drafts and Pom hasn't hauled himself out to Sandy Dragons. We know if you're a Sandy Dragons boy, you will guarantee to feature in a draft. 19 years old, 202 centimetres, exceptionally stiff not to go in the draft last year. 88 kegs. Think of if Pitternet had a child with TDK,
okay,
you'd have Max Ramsden.
Wow.
He is supremely athletic, but he uses his body and he's a bully. He loves to get forward. He would... You could have a snowball fight with this guy and his hands wouldn't have snow on them. That's how clean he is. He's very clean, very good around the ball. Huge upside. This kid, whoever gets drafted, I think Gold Coast may take him, but the Gold Coast are also looking at players that potentially are slipping, because Adelaide have come out today and said that they're going local and they're identifying a midfielder, which has probably shocked a lot of people because people thought it was backman and taller players.
Yeah.
This guy is a jet. He's not ready now, but he's way ahead of Murkoff and he's just behind Mr. TDK. So he would be a guy that is more than good enough to play all game in the forward line.
Right. So why didn't he get drafted?
He's a guy that's really bolted as an overager at Sandy Dragons. You've really seen the development. This kid has gone away. There was issues with his endurance at the time. You know, it's the common things, you know what I mean? 40 IQ. But this kid, since then to now, has really, really applied himself exceptionally. And he looks a real sort. I was watching him closely a couple of weeks ago with a good friend of mine. He impressed me straight away. I said, that's the one. And then as I did more research, I was like, we haven't found a gem here. Some other people are sniffing around him. But I do believe Kallan have met with him. I do believe we were one of the first clubs. I'm not too sure if we've done a second one. He was invited for medicals, though, which usually is an indication that a lot of clubs are after you. If the inevitable happens and, say, Gold Coast look at somewhere else, potentially then it could be around our pick. And this is, again, see the last guy we talked about. This is the guy you take because he is someone that you're going to really thank yourselves for this time next year.
Interesting. So knowing that Murkov's a bit of a project for us, knowing that the best footy of Tom DeConing is ahead of him, in many respects, maybe the same for Pitto, but Pitto's hurt. This kid Ramsden wouldn't be relevant for this year, but it would just be more of an opportunity to have the type of player that he could be on the list for the future.
Mate, this guy gives me Rowan Marshall vibes. That type of forward, you know, is agile. But you know what? He loves the scrap as well. But he also uses the pill really well. He's the modern day ruck guy. And he's a guy that, for me, as well, if Carlton do say have an injury, heaven forbid, to Harry, you can then rotate TDK and him and you can get rid of that Cripper experiment. I wouldn't mind this kid playing ASAP Rocky. So, yeah, I like this kid.
Okay. I'm excited by what I've heard.
I love him.
The next one is James Blanck. What is the story?
This is a guy that Hawthorn are probably the best side in the history of the competition at drafting players. And it's drafting players no one talks about. Now, I put this out this week and Hawthorn fans were like, hee, and loads of other people were like, who's this Mel? He's someone that you know Hawthorn are going to take. Now, they've opened up a second option. Do they bank that he won't be there. But James Blanck, see Emerson Jekker, what we talked about when no one had talked about him. He's gone under the radar. He's big, he's strong, he's burly. 3 marks this year, good efficiency. He's a proper stay-at-home fullback as well. Or he can play the centre halfback position. 195 in the mid 80 kgs. He's a tough guy, and I like this guy because I think this is someone that is ready now, but he's not one of these guys that you're going to look at in 6 months' time, 12 months, and be like, "Nah, fuck him off."
Right.
He's going to be someone that you think, you know what, we've got something here.
So why hasn't he been on the list so far?
I think with the quality of tolls last year that came, I think no one really had a dire need. He has someone though that has really excelled in VFL this year, and he's really, really come of age, and he's really bought into that, and it suits the Sam Mitchell philosophy, moving in from internally. And you know, that's what Sam Mitchell is all about. See Newcomb, he was a big advocate of his Box Hill boys in that draft, and he was a big decider in what they did with Clarko. And you can see it's working a treat. If you watch what Hawks are building, they've got that real nice togetherness, and he suits it. But if they do look elsewhere, potentially there is talk of our boy Ballenden. They may jump the queue and take him early. A lot of people have got him there. If he does go early, it's going to be Hawks. We then take the piss and we take their favourite.
Okay, interesting. The next one, he's a name that I think most of us will be familiar with. He's bled blue before. He currently bleeds blue, plays for the Carlton reserve side, and that's Jesse Glass-McCasker.
We're now in the realms of likely. Jesse Glass-McCasker, probably looking at your second pick. If Carlton's options, which are my final two, I think are the favourites, makes sense. He's had a very good year.
Yeah.
As VFL have talked about, O'Keefe has been an advocate that they play the identical roles as they do in the seniors. This is a guy that he's only requested a 6-month deal, so it's not like you're going to have him on your list forever. If Mackay and Kerno, heaven forbid, have an issue, it's someone that literally, you can plonk in the forward line. You don't have to change it. He's a team player. He would suit Voss's ethos as well. Incredibly improved as well. 11 hitouts as well. He's really been decent in the ruck and helping Murkoff off as well. So that helps Carlton if you do come in as well and they want to play a third toll system. Also, I'd say he'd be ready to go next week against Essendon if Carlton wanted him and said, you know what, this forward line, it doesn't quite work. And I think you saw last week, when it doesn't work, there's a big issue if they don't push up hard enough. Having one toll is so easy to defend and transition off. Maybe something Carlton think of. But this would be someone that I'd have no issues with if we get our priority number one with our first pick, and then we do our due diligence and say, look, we've got a backman who hopefully can ruck a bit. Let's get a forward who can ruck a bit, and then we've really managed to cover it. Because at the moment, we're in a situation where we haven't covered our need last draft. So this guy, he slots straight in. It doesn't excite me. Not running home to say I've predicted Jesse Glass-McCaster's back, but it's reliable. It's like a pair of old boots.
It's a body. It's a body. Yeah.
And you don't need a project. The last thing Carlton want, if they get who I think they will first pick, don't really want a project if you're going for backup.
Okay. Interesting. Then we get to the final two. Now, this is the name that was accidentally put on the map by Brian Taylor a few weeks ago when he referred to Corey Durdin playing for North Melbourne, when he was really talking about this fella, Sam Durdin. So all of a sudden, he's one of the favourites to land at the club. What is going on with him?
I'm a big fan. He's someone that came to my attention about 7 weeks ago when I first started doing this and was speaking to a few of my mates who follow Samful, and they were like, I was talking about our needs, and there was someone who was brought to my attention for me to check out. And I was like, I did the thing, he's had a chance though. North Melbourne, they're a bit toffee. He didn't make the grade. Don't like it. But I watched him and I remember the Sam Durdin that was behind Tarrant and the players there. And they had a very good backline. When I look back when he was there, they had a very solid backline, so it was a tough thing. This kid, he's kicking, and I don't want to say it and you take me the wrong way, but I'm going to say it anyway. If I was Voss, I look at what Wheatering did in the first 10 minutes and how important it was in the fact he had 4 intercepts. He plays really high centre-half back when we have the ball, gets us going, and he really gets us going in that right way. And once that died, we looked horrible in transition, and it showed you how Wheatering is. Sam Durdin is the closest in this draft that could do it tomorrow. He's got an elite kick, 84%, 76% is that's by foot. So they are Wheatering type numbers with kicking efficiency. Finds the pillar well, 15, 5.5 rebounds, 6 score launches a game, 5.5 marks a game. Elite field kicking, like I say, super athletic. He's got a really good engine as well. Really works as well in the Sandful. And it's a tough league, the Sandful. In my opinion, one of the hardest leagues in Australia and probably the most forgotten about. His ability to see, read the play, get them on the transition. I believe he's in the leadership group as well. So he's got that maturity, 25 years old. He's good to go. You play him against Essendon, happy days.
So remind me again, what's our first pick?
13.
So what's the chance that he actually makes it to 13?
200%.
Really? Why?
Because I think Connor Ballenden is the one that I would say would have the bigger upside because he's a giant. 200 centimetres, 100 kgs. He's playing up forward. He's been part-time down the back as well this year. He's got 20 hit-outs. He's kind of the licorice all sorts type player. So I think he was probably more stiff. I think Sam Durdin's 2 years older. So he's been kind of away from the scene for a while, really worked on his game, not really taking his chance. He deserves another chance. And I think it suits what Voss is building. These guys who have had a second chance at the club have really shown. I think it suits what Voss is about. Do you know what I mean? His second chance. And I think this kid is hungry. And what I'm seeing from him this year is head and shoulders apart from the Sam Durdin you saw at North.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I think he's the name that I've heard most about. But this is the final one. This is your boy, Connor Ballenden. What's going on here?
Juggernaut. Big guy, can play in the ruck, can play forward, has pinch hit down the back as well. He is an exceptional young man. 20 hit-outs, like we say, contested marking beast as well. Finds the pill, works the ground, likes to work up the wing as well. So you've got that intercept, which is very common with Vossi's game. And he's someone that you definitely, if he's there for our second pick or our first pick, depends which way Kallan go. I think Kallan will go Durdin first, though, and get it out of the way. If he is there, though, this is a perfect compliment for Kallan because he gives you the forward cover, but he's also a big body. So I think it gives Vossi that option to give some genuine protection to Mr. TDK.
So we get to pick 13. Both Ballenden and Durdin are available. Who should we take?
Durdin first. You've got to cover that base because that 6-week haul without Wheatering is probably going to be the hardest to cover. And I think that the club would be foolish to back Caleb Marchbank in. And it's a huge risk taking Brodie Kemp. Even though I think they can do it, I think if I was the coach, I would feel a lot more safer with an actual key defender that can play the role with a bit of maturity and feel a bit more confident going into that. And see Oscar McDonald. He surprised us. Clubs do make mistakes. I think he's your man. But Connor is a very good accessory if Carlton get him.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. So just to recap the players we've spoken about tonight. Kallan Dawson, we don't think he'll be available at our pick, but if he is...
If it happens, Christmas has come.
Okay. Max Ramsden, a nice prospect for the future. He's the child of TDK and Mark Pitternet. We've got James Blanck, which is the underrated Hawthorn guy that, if he doesn't come to us, he'll go to Hawthorn and he'll be the next Jai Newcomb. We've got Jesse Glass-McCasker, who was obviously drafted by the club years ago, never worked out, never got close to playing, and seems to be playing some good footy in the reserves. And I think the ruck component is a big reason why we would look at him. Sam Durdin, who seems to just be the name for us at the moment. And then Connor Ballenden. So just comparing Max Ramsden to Connor Ballenden, if they were both available, who would you go with?
Bias, Max, definitely, because I just think of the ceiling. I think what I'm looking at here is stopgaps, and I think Durdin would stay on the list because I don't think Oscar will be there. He's had multiple back injuries. I think it's now at the point that in an ideal world, Oscar would be fit and ready to go. So I'm not bothered about Sam Durdin. He can be there for 2 years for me. He's a very able backup, and he'll only get better in VFL because he's reaching his peak. In an ideal world, though, to answer Nicky's question, get both. If we can get both, it covers front and back. Front and back. Carlton should have covered this way earlier, particularly the forward line. The back line, I'll forgive them. But it also gives us that just make way in the ruck. Because Murkoff, if anyone's watched VFL, is way too raw to play it. It's the same with Domaku, my boy. He's way too raw to play key defender. So if we can get them two, wonderful.
Interesting. So tomorrow, what time is the draft?
6:30.
6:30 p.m., the mid-season draft. So, all right, exciting. It's an opportunity we haven't really... I mean, obviously, we did pick up Josh DeLuca a few years back, but the mid-season draft, I think it's a no-brainer to have it. I even personally think a mid-season trade period would be interesting for the league to shake it up. Like, imagine you could just make a move. I guess there's pros and cons to either side, but I think player movement is for the most part a good thing, especially for those who are looking for more opportunities.
Well, I mean, it would be a great case for Carlton. There's a lot of clubs that have got like 7 ruckmen on the list and 8, key defenders. And Carlton have got a plethora of midfielders that we can't even fit into the team. And it would be great to have that kind of, even a loan system.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Even a loan system, that you could feed a club, like an emergency loan even, if you do have these injuries. Because you are also in that uncharted territory as well, that someone like Domaku, God love him, he's very undersized. And if he had to play, you could potentially get an injury. Do you know what I mean? An injury that's that's life-changing. And we've seen it happen. So it's the big boys, this. And luckily, Carlton are in a wonderful situation that we actually do need to hit this draft. And if we take a small forward, we were linked with Josh Carmichael. If Carlton take a small forward with the first pick, I'm officially done.
No, I have a feeling that we're all aligned with or who knows? You never really know. But these are 6 of the names that have popped up. Let us know if there's any other names that you and the audience are interested in, or maybe some of you have researched, and we'll go from there. Pommy, mate, thanks so much for the research. Thanks for the work. And I look forward to seeing what happens tomorrow.
Mate, looking forward to welcoming a new blue bag here that we can all get around and give him a love.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. And make sure you stay tuned. 8 p.m. Jumper Punch, not to be missed tonight.